What if I told you that a single FIA decision could be what Ferrari needed to get back to the top in 2025? Why can this maximum 25 laps per tire rule alter the entire championship from Qatar? In a sport where performance margins are measured in thousands and where each technical decision can define an entire season, there are times when the FIA must intervene with drastic measures. The 2025 Qatar Grand Prix will mark one of those moments. What seemed like a simple mid-calendar race has suddenly transformed into a technical battlefield, where a single modification to the regulations threatens to alter not only the competitive order of the weekend, but the entire championship. The trigger for this decision was not born from a sporting strategy, but from a latent danger that exploded in previous years. In the 2024 edition of the Qatar GP, several tires, especially the left front ones, began to show extreme deterioration. But this was not a common degradation, the kind we see every Sunday. It was structural where, invisible to the naked eye, but internally devastating. Teams like Ferrari and Mercedes noticed abnormal vibrations in the middle of the race. Carlos Sainz had to retire after a puncture that exposed the invisible limits of Pirelli compounds. And he wasn't the only one. Lewis Hamilton also experienced sudden loss of grip, and engineers spoke on the radio with a tone of urgency rarely heard. Post-race data confirmed what many feared. The tires were collapsing internally before reaching the end of their stated life. This type of failure is critical in Formula One. It is not simply a matter of the tire losing performance. We're talking about the inner casing, the structure that holds the tire together, deforming under extreme lateral loads. And on a circuit like Losail, with long high-speed corners, aggressive curbs and temperatures above 40 degrees on the track, the cocktail was unsustainable. But this situation had already given signs a year before. In 2023, the FIA had to implement an 18-lap limitation as an emergency measure, after microlacerations caused by the pyramidal curbs were detected. It was a containment solution, not a definitive solution. For 2025, however, the FIA and Pirelli did not want to take the same risk. With the support of the Technical Commission and data accumulated by hundreds of pressure and temperature sensors in the cars, it was ruled that each set of tires would have a maximum of 25 useful laps. A measure that had not been seen before with this precision and anticipation. This was not a warning or a recommendation. It was a closed rule, and there would be no exceptions. The change was communicated to the teams 2 weeks in advance, in a technical document issued directly from Pirelli. It specified all the details of the new protocol, including the mileage control methods, how the laps would be counted, which instances would not be considered part of the count such as formation laps, those returning to the pits after the checkered flag, and which would be strictly counted, including those carried out under a safety car or virtual safety car. This decision represents a kind of breaking from the traditional script of a career. Until now, the dominant teams had managed to build their strategies around minimizing stops and maximizing the long stint. Red Bull, for example, had made that its hallmark in recent seasons. McLaren also evolved along those lines, especially on high degradation circuits like Qatar. And Ferrari historically suffered in those circumstances. But now, with a structural limitation imposed from the regulations, the cards are shuffled again, and the game changes radically. The 2025 Qatar GP becomes a chess game where it is no longer the one who best conserves, but the one who best manages wear and tear in multiple phases. And the most interesting thing of all is that this technical modification is not temporary. Although it will be applied in Qatar as a one-off measure, it has been proposed as a model for future circuits with similar thermal and mechanical conditions. That is to say, this race could be the testing ground for a deeper transformation in the technical philosophy of modern Formula One. The first thing to understand is that the 25-lap rule is not just a technical curiosity or an isolated measure. It is a disruptive element that completely reconfigures the strategic DNA of a Grand Prix. We are not talking about a penalty, but about a new mandatory framework with logistical, tactical, and competitive implications. And in this context, Ferrari has more than reasons to celebrate. The regulations establish that each set of tires, regardless of compound, cannot exceed 25 laps in active use during the entire Qatar weekend. But this limitation is not per session or per day, it is cumulative. That is, if a driver uses a set of mediums for 10 laps in free practice on Friday, then he will only be able to do it 15 more laps in qualifying or the race. The monitoring system is automatic, digital, and is monitored in real time from the pits and the FIA. A lap in the virtual safety car counts. A lap with slow traffic too. Only those that are not part of a timed session are excluded. Training sessions, the return to the grid and the return to the post-race pits. Additionally, this limitation applies in a sprint weekend context, which further tightens mileage management. With just one free practice, sprint qualifying, the 19-lap sprint race, GP qualifying, and the 57-lap main race, tire planning becomes a juggling act. Every kilometer counts. Each wrong decision can compromise not only Sunday but the entire weekend. This is where Ferrari can make a difference. Because the focus that this new rule requires is not only on performance on the track, but also on anticipation in the strategy room. Instead of focusing exclusively on raw speed, what gains value is the ability to predict thermal wear in different phases of the race, calculate the optimal number of laps per stint, and adapt on the fly with surgical precision. It is a game of simulation maps, dynamic projections, and zero tolerance for error. In addition, the SF25, Ferrari's 2025 car, has shown a characteristic that could be critical: its lower sensitivity to tire temperature in the early stint phases, especially with the C2 and C3 compounds. This allows its drivers to get performance from the first lap without having to heat up the tires as much, which reduces the accumulated thermal stress and allows them to extract more effective laps without compromising the limit of 25. But that's not all. Charles Leclerc, by driving style, is known for his ability to manage rear wear without compromising cornering. And Lewis Hamilton, even in his second GP with Ferrari, has already shown in China that he can adjust his driving to reduce lateral slip, which is key in circuits like Losail. Both profiles adapt perfectly to the new paradigm imposed by the FIA. Comparison. Teams like McLaren or Mercedes could face more difficulties. McLaren has built a car that is highly efficient in qualifying pace, but that depends a lot on tire preparation. And Mercedes, with a rookie driver like Antonelli, is still finding its tactical identity. Red Bull, for its part, loses one of its strong points: the flexibility to do long stints with Verstappen. Now that advantage evaporates. There is an additional detail that may go unnoticed, but is essential: public control of the count of remaining laps per set of tires. Before each weekend session, the FIA, in conjunction with Pirelli, will inform how many exact laps are left in each set for each driver. This transparency forces everyone to show their cards, which under normal conditions did not happen. In this open information environment, errors are magnified and the ability to strategically adapt becomes even more valuable. And Ferrari, after 2 seasons of rebuilding, is better positioned than ever to play this new game. With more refined tools, experienced drivers, and a car designed for high temperatures and medium-speed corners, Qatar can be the laboratory where the Scuderia finds victory again. Not for pure speed, but for tactical intelligence. Because sometimes races are not won by the fastest, but by the one who best understands the new rules. And this time the rules change for everyone. But only a few are prepared to take advantage of them. When a single technical decision changes the architecture of a career, the effects are never isolated. The new limit of 25 laps per set of tires at the Qatar GP not only affects what we will see on the track that weekend. It is called to be a catalyzing force within the 2025 championship. To understand why this change is so decisive, we must analyze it from 3 dimensions: the direct impact on the race in Qatar, the medium-term consequences on the standings, and the signal it sends to the rest of the calendar. Firstly, remember that Qatar is the only sprint event in this part of the calendar, making it a tactical turning point. Teams that fail here don't just lose points on Sunday, they also lose on Saturday. And they do so at a time when the margin between contenders is minimal. Until the Japanese GP, the 3 leading teams McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull are separated by less than 50 points in constructors. In drivers, just 10 units separate Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton. In such a tight context, a single Grand Prix can redefine who leads or who falls to 3rd position. Qatar is therefore a double-edged trap. A race that requires a sequence of 2 or 3 stops to be executed with surgical perfection under pressure, with no room for logistical errors, with critical temperatures, on a track that has historically punished any hesitation. The team that makes a mistake with the choice of compound, that uses up a set of tires ahead of schedule, or that does not respect the official count of allowed laps, will face automatic sanctions. There is no option to improvise. In this scenario, Ferrari not only arrives well prepared, it arrives with a structural advantage. Teams that built their cars under the assumption of long stints and graining control are now forced to redesign their approach. Red Bull, for example, loses one of its most lethal weapons: Verstappen's ability to extend the tires beyond the estimated range. McLaren, although fast, will have to sacrifice pace to ensure durability. Mercedes, still in the process of consolidation, does not have the consistency in the pits or the simulation mileage necessary to adapt with agility. Leave me your analysis in the comments. Would you bet on Ferrari in Qatar? Or do you see McLaren, Mercedes, or even Red Bull reacting in time and regaining the initiative?